There was a lot of fear in the female students that the guy had a repetition of choosing the most beautiful woman and trying to force her to date him, and then in most cases he will execute her or let one of his bodyguards kill her after he raped her.
It seems clear that he was, he was a sort of sex addict. I mean, he had to have women all the time. We're talking about an unstable character here.
And Uday would never face punishment in a country where abuse of human rights was part of government policy.
Iraq is, as best we know, the only country in the world that has rapists on their payroll who are employed to do nothing but rape female victims to try to extract confessions either from them or from the men who love them.
As Saddam Hussein came to be known as the madman of the Middle East, Iraq's crown prince carved his own monstrous niche in Iraq's lore. Uday Hussein was becoming the most hated man in his own country. For Saddam Hussein, nepotism was one of his most effective tools in ensuring his reign over Iraq. By the late 1980s, most of his staff were relatives. Key jobs as head of the various state security services went to Saddam's half-brothers, Watban and Sabawi Hassan, and his cousin, Ali Hassan al-Majid. His other half-brother, Barzan Hassan, was an ambassador to UNESCO.
The patriarchal culture, the tribal culture that Saddam comes from, values kinship more than anything else. And out of kinship, they expect loyalty. But they really believe that's the only place they'll ever find loyalty.
Saddam's sons were given important posts that kept them in the public eye. Uday Hussein was appointed head of Iraq's Olympic Committee when he was only 20. He gained a reputation as a sadist, torturing, mutilating, and even killing athletes who did not meet his expectations.
Uday, he don't care about people, He think all the people same like animals. Whatever he wants, he do it.
Someone said to us it was a terrible day in the life of Iraq when Uday discovered the internet, because he used it to research ancient and varied torture techniques that he then applied on Iraqi athletes or his friends or his perceived political enemies.
Uday is someone who's had a great deal of pleasure from his unbounded violence, which there's never been any constraints imposed upon him by his family, including acid baths, boiling water, pulling fingernails out, electric prods, breaking bones. This goes beyond just systematic, rational torture, if there's such a thing, in order to intimidate.
As Saddam and his son spread terror throughout Iraq, it was becoming clear that there was an ugly tension growing inside the presidential family. In 1986, Saddam had taken a second wife, Samira Shabandar. She'd been married to an Iraqi airline executive and had 2 children. There were conflicting reports as to whether she'd had a son with Saddam, named Ali. The existence of another brother was completely unacceptable to Uday and Qusay.
The sons have apparently always been very defensive about this second wife, have tried to maintain the position of their mother. So it's possible that if there were a third son, Saddam would have gone out of his way not to acknowledge such a child.
But it seemed that Saddam had found a true companion in Samira, and someone whose opinion he valued.
She was the one person who would give him, believe it or not, feedback on how his policies were going down. She was the one person who could see him without anybody's permission, and that extended even to his children.
Saddam's first wife, Sajida, was jealous of Samira and dyed her hair blonde to look like her rival. Uday was furious over what he saw as his mother's humiliation. In 1988, Uday attended a reception for the wife of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. He became enraged with Kamal Hana Jejo, one of Saddam's closest friends, food taster, and sometime pimp. Uday blamed Jejo for Saddam's many mistresses. At the party, Jejo fired his gun into the air in traditional Arab fashion.
Uday told the bodyguard to go back and tell Visas to stop it. Kamal Hana told him, I don't take orders from brats. I only take orders from the president. Uday, of course, had this German-made, this special stick with a very sharp end. He went straight to Kamal Hanna, asked him to come down, and hit him on the neck with that stick. Wounded, Kamal Hanna fell on the ground, and Uday then took the pistol and shot him.
When Saddam heard the news about the attack on Kamal Hanna Jejo, he threatened to have Uday executed.
Saddam Hussein was furious. He told him, if Kamal Hanna goes, you go. And Kamal Hanna died that very night.
Uday's mother intervened. Although Sajeeda may have spared Uday's life, Saddam still had him thrown into the notorious Ragwaniya prison outside of Baghdad, where he was tortured.
This was the watershed when he changed from merely an unstable, violent, murderous thug to a totally off-the-wall, wild psychopath who had simply no control at all. This was the moment when he just flipped. This was the moment when he became a truly frightening human being.
Uday's only comfort in prison was having visits from Qusay. Although Qusay was often embarrassed by his brother's behavior, there was a strong bond between the two. Eventually, Uday was welcomed back into the fold, but he would never again enjoy the same prominence in the widening family circle. Saddam's two oldest daughters, Ragad and Rana, had married brothers from Tikrit. Soon they were put on Saddam's payroll, and Ragad's husband, Hussein Kamel, became one of the most important members of Saddam's inner circle.
Hussein Kamel was Uday's first cousin and his brother-in-law, and very, very deeply trusted by Saddam. He was the person who was in charge of the bio and chemical weapons programs. He had a lot to do with the nuclear program as well. So he was a very powerful man.
Saddam not only treated Kamel like a son, he had him take Qusay under his wing in his special security unit. It was clear that Saddam was now looking to Qusay as the son who had what it took to be the next dictator of Iraq.
The kind of ruthlessness, the kind of cunning that was involved. Now, I think those were qualities that you could see in Qusay, who had his father's quietness, determination, cunning, and sense of survival.
Uday was shocked by his father's rejection.
Uday was bitterly resentful that Qusay had taken over his role as heir apparent, which is very extraordinary in that Uday was the older son, generally an unassailable position in an Arab family.
This situation only deepened Uday's psychotic behavior. He developed an intense hatred for his brother-in-law, Hussein Kamel, that threatened to crack the very foundation of the family. But this rift would soon be overshadowed by looming events. Saddam's plan to invade neighboring Kuwait now threatened to bring down the Hussein regime and the clan that produced it. The Hussein family's wealth was measured not only in banknotes, but in generations. Saddam took great pride in all of his children and grandchildren.
Loving,